Dear students, welcome back. Next school of thought of Unit 3 is Pragmatism, Prayojanvad. The term pragmatism derives its origin from a Greek word pragma, meaning activity or practice or action. As action gets priority over thought, pragmatism is also known as expenditure, which believes in practicability or utility depending upon the truth, reality, goodness, or badness, which are all relative terms and are not predetermined or absolute. Pragmatism tends to hold the idea that the truth fact of yesterday needs to be experienced truly, totally, and too much. It idealizes the activity on the basis of its consequence over time frame. In short, it conceptualizes an inference on the basis of changed or changing needs, circumstances, and places. Pragmatist believes that no truth is absolute and permanent, as it is ever changing from time to time and place to place and from circumstance to circumstance. Thus, their fundamental start is change. Whatever was true yesterday need to be the true today. The philosophy of pragmatists is predetermined to those ideas and values which result in utility to mankind in certain time, place, or circumstance rather than any predetermine of life. Pragmatic philosophy is a practical philosophy having no fixed or absolute standards. Man always creates new values and education should help him to doing so. Being practical and utilitarian school of philosophy, pragmatism has influenced education to the maximum extent. It has tried overcoming the limitations of other schools like idealism and naturalism and has influenced the world to great extent. The Roman Catholics pre- perpetrated inhuman cruelties upon the Protestants and the Reformists in Europe in the 16th and 17th centuries. As a result, thousands of the oppressed migrated from Europe to America for freedom, safety, and peace. Some years later, the spirit of industrial revolution in Europe reached the shores of America and it affected the migrants who had to confront new problems and difficulties due to the changed environment. Their old ideals and values were incapable of meeting and solving the new problem. This generated in terms a new type of thinking to solve the emerging problems. The new mode of thinking led them to know new types of activities and new ways of learning by doing and by consequences and experiences. They judged the events on the basis of their consequences. They selected and used only those activities which were found good and useful to solve their problems of life. In this way, the pragmatic philosophy was conceived in the 19th century and its influence is growing in all areas of human life and development even today. The circumstances and compulsions of life led the Americans to evolve this new ideology as it suited their ever changing needs of life. This philosophy is known as the gift of American philosophy, which has made a very deep impact on the education of the 20th and the 21st century. The chief exponent of pragmatism are C.B. Pierce, Archie J. Baum, John Dewey, William James, Will Durant, and Schiller. For pragmatism, experience is at the center of the universe. Hence, it lays emphasis upon man-made ideas and values resulted by the experimental activities. Now, the meaning of pragmatism. The term pragmatism first appeared in 1878 in How to Make Our Ideas Clear. An article of Charles Sanders Peirce, the word pragmatism has been derived from the Greek word pragma, which means to do, to make, to accomplish, and to act. Therefore, the words activity, action, practice, doing, making, and accomplishing, etc., are used to refer to pragmatism. Some scholars think that the word pragmatism has been derived from the Greek word pragmatikos, which means practicability or utility. According to this school of thought, practice comes first and theory afterwards. Thus, action gets priority over thought. Everything is tested on the touchstone of experience. It emphasizes action rather than thought. The basic assumptions of this philosophy is whatever is learned in education ought to be useful for the individual in his social life. Pragmatism is also known by various names such as practical philosophy, utilitarian philosophy, experimental philosophy, philosophy of instrumentalism, and philosophy of consequentialism. Archie J. Baum calls it down to earth philosophy and each value and cash value philosophy. Now, definition of pragmatism. Pragmatism, pragmatism is the modern ideology of education which has been defined by different philosophers. According to James B. Pratt, pragmatism offers us a theory of meaning, a theory of truth of knowledge, and a theory of reality. According to Arnold Reed, pragmatism is an activity, engagement, encounter based on the concept of practice or workability of an idea or theory. According to William James, pragmatism, pragmatism is a temper of mind and attitude. It is also a theory of the nature of ideals and truth. And finally, it is a theory about reality. According to J.S. Ross, pragmatism is essentially a humanistic philosophy maintaining that man creates his own values in the course of activity, that reality is still in the making and awaits its parts of completion from the future. That to an unascertainable extent are truth are man-made products. According to Premnath, the nature of pragmatism is naturalistic, its duration is scientific and practicable, and its aim is social and humanistic. According to Will Durant, pragmatism is the doctrine that truth is the practical efficiency of an idea. Now, now, forms of principles of pragmatism. First principle is revolt against traditionalism and absolution. Pragmatism is a revolt against the existing beliefs such as idealism and naturalism. This ideology gives emphasis to the practicability of things and activity. It believes that truth is that which work in practical situation. According to pragmatism, whatever fulfills one's purpose, satisfies one's desire, and develops one's life is true. In fact, the philosophy is a midway between naturalism and idealism. Next principle, truth changes. According to the pragmatist, truth always changes. They believe that what is true today may not necessarily be true tomorrow. What is true to one may not necessarily be true or good to others. What is true to India may not necessarily be true to England or America, and so on. Thus, truth is not absolute or predetermined for all times to come. It changes with the changes in person, place, time, or circumstances. In the words of John Dewey, truth is made just as health, wealth, and strength are made in the course of experience. Next principle, no ultimate value. The main principle of pragmatic philosophy is that it has no ultimate value. Values such as truth, goodness, and beauty are only man made products. They are not fixed and they emerge only in the individual social flow of events. In the word of John Dewey, values are as unstable as the form of clouds. They keep on changing from time to time, and reality is still in the process of making. Ideals ends are remotely connected with immediate and urgent conditions. Thought is subordinate to action. Next principle is pragmatic philosophy bestows supreme position in the action. It considers that activity is more important than ideas. In other words, ideas should be born out of activity. According to this school of philosophy, practice comes first and theory afterward. Next principle is faith in democracy. Pragmatism has deep faith in democracy. An individual can realize the maximum development of his personality only in a social context. Therefore, he should acquire the qualities of social skills. The spirit of sharing one's experience develops an understanding of other people and their attitudes towards him. Pragmatist holds the view that life, education, and democratic process are all rolled into one. Next principle, faith in the flexibility. Pragmatists have strong faith in flexibility. They believe that nothing is fixed and final in the world. Everything grows, changes, and develops in course of time. In other words, the world is changing and everything is under a process of transformation. Human life is also changing. The flexibility brings out progress and development in the society. Faith, next principle is faith in present and future. According to pragmatism, each individual has to solve the problems of his present and future life. Hence, the present and the immediate future are of great value to him than the past. They hold that it is of no use to think and talk about what is dead and gone. Next principle is faith in pluralism. Pragmatists uphold pluralism. About the absolute reality, there are three views and beliefs, that is, monoism, dualism, and pluralism. Experience is the test of truth. Man's experience provides the validity of an idea or field. There are many pragmatic truths. Rust says naturalism reduces everything to life, idealism to mind or spirit. Pragmatism sees no necessary for seeking one fundamental principle of explanation. It is quite content to admit several principles and accordingly pluralistic. In short, pluralism refers to the different views that people have on a particular thing. Next principle is faith in experimentation. Pragmatism is also known as experimentalism. Human life is like a laboratory wherein each individual undertakes various experiments to solve the problems of his life. No judgment is possible before an experiment is tested by experience. In the words of William James, the cash value of truth is in experimental terms. C.S. Pierce calls the laboratory habit of mind. Next principle is faith in manpower. Pragmatists bestow a great importance on the power of man. They have faith in manpower such that a man can create an environment which is useful, beneficial, and conducive to his own development and the welfare of the society. Man himself determines the goals for his present life. Next principle is faith in experience. Pragmatists lay stress on experience. Truth, goodness, and beauty are accepted if they work. They say that only human experience is reliable. Human experience and purposes are the determining factors of values and life. Next principle is principle of utility. Pragmatism is a utilitarian philosophy. It believes that anything which bestows satisfaction is useful or which help in the growth of man is useful. In other words, only those ideas or things are true or right which have a utility for man. According to William James, it is true because it is useful. Whatever has utility is real. Next principle, reality is still in the making. The philosophy holds that reality is not ready-made. It is still in the making. The world is still in the process of formation and development of theories for reality. Man is to aid this process of formation of theories to such an extent that all the needs and requirements of human being are fully satisfied. The great pragmatist William James says, for naturalism, reality is ready-made and complete from all entities, while for pragmatism, it is still in the making and awaits its parts of completion from the future. Next principle, faith in practical philosophy. According to pragmatism, true philosophy is one that helps in the solution of the practical problems in life. It says philosophy is thinking what to do in life situation and it is brought into existence when problems occur. In other words, philosophy is anything which is practical to find solution for problem occurring in life. Next principle is to maintain mentalism. Instrumentalism is the next principle of pragmatism. Pragmatists believe that ideas are only tools and instruments. These are the sources or means to gain practical knowledge. According to this belief, a thinker is a manipulator and not a beholder. Ideas or thought enlarge their scope by testing themselves on practical issues. Next principle, interaction with environment. Pragmatism believes that growth of population takes place because of its interaction with environment. Man tries to adjust himself to his environment and this result in his growth. Next principle, social value. Man is born in society and he lives there. So his existence without a society is meaningless. Hence, pragmatists give more importance to social values and ideas than individual values and ideas. They consider freedom, equality, tolerance, responsibility, and justice as social values. Next principle, knowledge is a byproduct of action. Pragmatism holds the view that the reconstruction of experience is knowledge. Such knowledge can be acquired through imagination and experimentation or action. Next principle is problem motivate truth. According to this philosophy, man undertakes various experiments to solve the problems which occur in the course of his growth and development. Hence, the success of an experiment is the source for truth. Thus, problems are the motivating force for the search of truth. Next, rejection of authoritarianism. The pragmatic philosophy rejects or opposes all type of authoritarianism, whether in government or religion or education. It has a firm faith in the doctrine of democracy. Now, pragmatism in education. Pragmatism emerged as the 20th century revolution against the 19th century rationalism, dogmatism, universalism, monoism, and dualism. The credit of introducing pragmatism into education goes to two social thinkers, namely William James and John Dee. Pragmatism has promoted a new consciousness and awakening in the field of modern education. According to John Dewey, the real value of a thing lies in its utility for human welfare. Since education contributes the human welfare and progress, it will be more useful and purposeful. The pragmatists have two fundamental beliefs. The first is that no principle or idea is valid and true for all times. The second belief is that the real value of things lies in its utility and usefulness for human welfare. On the basis of these beliefs, they hold the view that no educational process can be regarded as final and useful for all times to come. It changes according to the changing needs and circumstances of the society. Education prepares man to test knowledge for truth on the basis of its usefulness by activity or experience in a social environment to solve its social problems. Pragmatist believes that human beings create their own ideas and values through various activities and experiences. According to these philosophers, education is not the dynamic side of philosophy, but philosophy itself evolved from education. Education is not the preparation of man for his life, but it is life itself involving experience, experimentation, and free thinking. In the words of John Dewey, education is the process of reconstruction of experiences, giving it a more sociological value through the medium of increased individual efficiency. Now, characteristics of pragmatic education. Since pragmatism is a practical and utilitarian school of philosophy, it has influenced education to the maximum extent. Hence, the study of the characteristics of pragmatism has become important from the educational point of view. First, education as life. Pragmatists firmly believe that education is life itself. Education provides a child more and more opportunities to undertake various activities and experiments through which real knowledge can be gained. As a result, he creates his own values and ideals that makes his life better and comfortable. Next, education as growth. According to pragmatists, education is a dynamic and progressive process in nature according to the changing circumstances of life. John Dewey says growth is the real function of education. In other words, man and society are growing and accordingly their needs are growing and changing. So, education has to grow in order to meet the needs and requirements of human beings. Pragmatists believe that each child is born with inherent tendencies, aptitudes, and capacities. It is education which should develop these inherent qualities of a child to create his own values, which equip him to face all problems of life at various times and difficulties, different situations. Next, education as reconstruction of experiences. John Dewey says education is a process of continuous reconstruction of experiences. Pragmatists s- stress the real knowledge is gained by experiments and experience conducted by the child himself. One experience leads to another and then to many others. Thus, The process of reconstruction of experiences goes until the final truth is gained. These experiences enable the child to develop his personality to adjust with other people in the society in a more democratic way. Thus, educative process has no end and it goes beyond itself. In short, education means more education. Next, education as social process. Man is a social animal and he lives in the society. He is integrally related to all human beings. He should therefore be educated through the medium of society so as to develop the desirable social qualities in him. This is also because he gains more and more knowledge through personal experiences than he gets from books. Hence, it is the function of education that it should teach him the give and take process and make him aware of his social obligations. Brubaker points out the two basic principles of pragmatic education. The first is that education has a social function, and the second, it must provide social experience to the child. In the school, the educand must be trained to become useful in the democratic pattern of life. Pragmatists emphasize the importance of social values. In the words of John Dewey, education is the social continuity of life. The education of the child through the medium of society promotes his welfare and happiness. Next, education as a responsibility of the state. Education is a birthright of each individual in a democratic country. Hence, it is the whole responsibility of the state to provide education to all its citizens. Pragmatists stress the fact that the state should take the responsibility of providing education to each child by which he is prepared to meet the problems and challenges of life successfully. Next, education as freedom. Pragmatic education works on the principle of democracy, which influences in a child a sense of freedom, initiative, equality, and also a sense of responsibility. It insists that freedom should be given to the child for the development of his all-round, all-round responsibility. Next, education as humanitarianism. Pragmatic education aims at creating humanitarian values in every sphere of education. Education of all kinds should aim at evolving human values through adopting suitable method of teaching, aims of education curriculum, etc. Next, education as democracy. Pragmatists wants to utilize education to create democratic values and ideas in educators. A democratic society stresses the importance of equality, liberty, and fraternity. It is education which should be evolved in such a way as to prepare the educand for a democratic and social life. Next, education as personality. Pragmatic philosophy attaches the greatest importance to the human personality. According to this ideology, a human personality is considered as the most significant element in the process of education. Education must be pedo- pedocentric, based on the natural activities and inclinations of the child in order to make him capable of adapting the social environment. Now, pragmatism and aims of education. Pragmatist believes that life is a dynamic which is subjected to constant change. Hence, the aim of education are bound to be dynamic. According to them, education deals with human life, so it must help the children to fulfill their biological and social needs. Education should enable a child to create values in its life. In the words of Ross, education must create new values. The main task of educator is to put the educand into a position to develop values for him. This the aim of education formulated by the pragmatists are first is to create new values. The pragmatists do not believe in the theory of any fixed aim of education. In their opinion, the aim of education is to create new values, and the act of teacher is to help himself develop new values. Second one, to enable pupils to gather experience through activity. For the creation of new values, activity and experience are essential. Education should therefore provide physical, intellectual, moral, and aesthetic activities as the media for the creation of new value. Next, to help the pupil to adjust with him and the society. The other important aim of education, according to pragmatism, is to help the pupil to make adjustment with himself and the society. Next, to help the pupil to reconstruct his experience. Every individual has to solve different types of complex problems in his life. So, the another important aim of education, according to pragmatism, is to enable the pupil to form such an outlook about life as can help to tackle successfully the different problems of his life in future. Next, to make all-round development of the pupil. All-round development of the individual is also an important aim of education. The individual develops physically, mentally, socially, and aesthetically. Next, more education. The aim of pragmatic education is more education. It means that education is the development of knowledge. Every part of learning leads to another. Thus, the educative process has no end beyond itself. Next, all around development. The essential aim of education is to direct the impulses, interests, and abilities towards the satisfaction of the felt needs of the child in its environment. The individual develops his personality in terms of physical, intellectual, social, moral, and aesthetic aspects. Next, leads democracy. The pragmatic aim of education is to create a democratic environment in the society. Kilpatrick is correct in saying our school rooms must become living democracies that inner democracy. It is self-directing personality that we try to build the kind that can carry forward life even more successfully in the developing world, and that the progressive development of a better life for all men is the basis out of which morally and moral conduct arise. So, education must create the environment for democracy to flourish, which enables the individual to determine his belief and fulfill his needs. Now, contribution of pragmatism to education. Activity lies at the center of all educative process. The basis of all teaching is the activity of the child. Foster education is preparation for life. Pragmatism makes a man socially efficient. They believe that the children should not be asked to work according to predetermined goals. They should rather determine their goals according to their needs and interests. Pragmatism is based on the psychology of individual differences. Pragmatists want education according to aptitude and abilities of the individual. Every individual must be respected and education should be planned to cater his inclination and capacity. According to pragmatism, the theory and practice of education is based on two main principles, namely, first is education should have a social function, and second one is education should provide real life experience to the child. Broadly, pragmatism and education can be discussed as something that are every continuous experience or activity is educative, and all education in fact resides in having such experience. But continuous growth in experience is not the whole education. Education is something more. It constant recognizing or reconstructing of experience. Pragmatism provides definite aim of education. The student is prepared to live in a society and learn skills and attitude. The teaching method are based on learning by doing. The project method is the contribution of pragmatism in modern education. Pragmatism encourages a democratic way to learning through purposeful and cooperating projects and activities. Utility in the educative process is the first criteria. The school is expected to provide learning experience that are useful. Education is not bound to tradition. Pragmatic philosophers advise us to test everything through our own experience. The teacher has to play a very challenging role in the education process under pragmatism, and he has to be very alert and watchful. Next, pragmatism and curriculum. In the field of curriculum development, the following principles have been prescribed by the pragmatist. First is principle of utility. According to this principle, only those subject activities and experiences should be included in the curriculum which are equal to the present needs of the child and also meet the future expectation of the adult life as well. The subjects are such as language, physical well-being, physical training, geography, history, science, agriculture, and home science for girls. Next principle is principle of interest. According to this principle, only those activities and experiences where the child takes interest are of four varieties, namely, first, interest in construction. Second one, interest in creative expression, keeping these varieties of interest in view at the primary stage. The curriculum should include writing, counting, art, craft work, natural science, and other practical work of simple nature. Third one, interest in conversation. And fourth one, interest in investigation. Third principle of experience. The third principle of pragmatic curriculum is the child's activity, vocation, and experience. All these three should be closely integrated. The curriculum should consist of such varieties of learning experiences which promote original thinking and freedom to develop social and purposeful attitudes. Next principle of integration. Pragmatic curriculum deals with the integration of subject and activity. Pragmatist wants to construct flexible, dynamic, and integrated curriculum which aid the developing child and the changing society more and more as he/she needs, demands, and situations require. Next, pragmatism and methods of teaching. Teaching learning process is a social and bipolar process. Learning takes place as an interaction between the teacher and the taught. Pragmatism gives priority to taught, similarly between the taught and action. It gives priority to action. They prefer practical over theory-based teaching learning process. The pragmatists have completely discarded the conventional method of teaching and aid emphasize on the intervention of new methods. The whole emphasis of method of teaching in pragmatism is on child, not the book of the teacher or the subject. The dominant interest of the child is to do and to make. The methods should be flexible and dynamic. Pragmatists believe that minds of different children are different. Hence, we cannot have a fixed method of teaching which can be equal to all situations. Learning by doing and the project methods have an important place in the methods of teaching proposed by the pragmatist. All learning must come as a product of action. Learning by doing makes a person a creative, confident, and cooperative. They also put an emphasis on the discovery and inquiry method. The techniques which follow the principle of learning by doing can be used according to pragmatist view. Now, pragmatism and teacher. In the opinion of pragmatists, the study of the teacher is to create such an environment in the school where people will have to face different problems relating to real life and will take interest in the solution of those problems. Pragmatism regards teacher as a helper, guide, and philosopher. The chief function of pragmatic teacher is to suggest problems to his pupils and to stimulate them to find by themselves in to the solution which will evolve. The teacher must provide opportunities for the natural development of innate qualities of if the children. His main task is to suggest problem to his student people and guide them to find out the solution. Next, pragmatism and discipline. Pragmatists have opposed against the imposition of rules and regulation on people. They believe in social and personal discipline. In their opinion of if we give them opportunities to participate in different types of collective activities, spontaneous discipline will grow in them. Pragmatists believe that play and work should be combined and this combination will perform a mental attitude and discipline. By taking part in such activities, the qualities like tolerance, sympathy, mutual respect, attitude of service will be developed in them. Discipline cannot be maintained through force and definition. Children should be left free in order to develop freely and harmoniously. According to pragmatists, reward and punishment are of no significance in the process of learning. They believed that no moral standard of values are already established. The philosophy believes in discipline, but the discipline should not be the outcome of external force. It should be backed by freedom and joy. It advocates on discipline based on the principles of child activities and interests. It upholds discipline based on social and mutual understanding. It believes in engaging the children free and real activities of human life. Conclusion. The practical outlook and utilitarian philosophy of pragmatism has tremendously influenced the education system in the present world. The study has found that the activity-based teaching and learning methods have turned the educational process to become purposeful. It has certainly influenced a sense of reality in education. This experimental character of education enunciates the values in a child through his ideas. Pragmatism makes him optimistic, energetic, creative, and active. According to pragmatism, education is not the dynamic side of philosophy as advocated by the idealist. It is the philosophy which emerges from an emotional educational practice. Every individual has a social self and he can be best developed in and through society. Thus, we can conclude by saying that pragmatism has brought democracy in education. The students learn the technique of managing their own responsibilities, which would prepare them to face in different challenges of real life. It makes a man socially efficient, that is, he can determine his goals according to his needs and interests. So, this is all about the pragmatist philosophy. Pragmatism is a Western school of thought. It believes on practical and experiments. Thank you. Thank you so much.